Australia has already met and beat our Kyoto 2020 targets. And indeed, Australia will beat and meet our 2030 targets as well. Australians' actions on climate change speak louder than the words of others. We're getting it done on emissions reduction. That is the Australian way. And we've done this at the same time as increasing the size of our economy by 45%, growing our economy and creating some 3 million jobs, expanding our exports, expanding our agriculture and resource sectors, in particular our LNG sector. And most recently, Australia now has 1 million of our number back in manufacturing jobs. 1 million Australians employed in manufacturing. This is what is being achieved in Australia. Emissions coming down, our economy growing, and the opportunities of Australians expanding. Australians want action on climate change. They're taking action on climate change, but they also want to protect their jobs and their livelihoods. They also want to keep the cost of living down, and they also want to protect the Australian way of life, especially in rural and regional areas. The Australian way of life is unique. I mentioned this to our party room this morning. After the terrible floods in North Queensland, when I stood in the town hall in Julia Creek, I said we needed to rebuild the cattle industry, which had been devastated in the space of about 24 to 48 hours, for many reasons. But one was because it was part of the unique Australian way of life. And that remains true in all of the challenges we face. Australians want a plan that gets the balance right. And our plan to reach what will be our new official target of reaching net zero emissions by 2050, our plan gets the balance right. Our plan charts a uniquely Australian way that recognises the challenges. The world is changing, and the world's response to climate change is changing the world. It is changing the global economy. This is real. It's happening. We understand it and we recognise it. We need to protect against the threats that come from that, and we also need to realise the opportunities that indeed help mitigate those threats and enable Australia to succeed. We know we can't let the changes that are happening around the world just happen to Australia. We know we can't pretend it's not happening, and the changes that are occurring around the world, just as we haven't been pretending in the actions that both the government has been taking and, most importantly, Australians have been taking. Our plan is a fair plan. It's a practical plan. It's a responsible plan. Our plan for net zero by 2050 is the plan that I believe Australians want, because it gets it right. It's been carefully put together. We've listened very carefully to both the concerns and the ambitions of Australians in pulling this together to ensure that we get the plan right. Our plan, most importantly, backs Australians to achieve what they want to achieve when it comes to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Australians want to do that, and our plan enables them to do that. Our plan works with Australians to achieve this goal. Our plan enables them. It doesn't legislate them. It doesn't mandate them. It doesn't force them. It respects them. It understands that Australians want to do this, that they want to improve their pasture, that they want to protect their industries, that they want to see them succeed in the future, that they want to have the skills in the future and for their kids to have the skills in the future to be successful in the world that they will face over the next 30 years. It's a plan that backs Australians. It's also a plan, as I said, that's uniquely Australian. It's an energy, trade and economic plan, not just an environmental plan. It's about delivering results through technology, not taxes. It's focused on Australia's national interests and securing our strengths by determining our own destiny. Australians will set our own path to net zero by 2050, and we'll set it here, by Australians, for Australians. It keeps traditional advantages in the regions while supporting the growth of new industries, and it guarantees we keep downward pressure on those costs of living. It's a plan that ensures that there are many things we don't do as well. It's not a plan at any cost. There's no blank cheques here. It will not shut down our coal or gas production or exports. It will not impact households, businesses or the broader economy with new costs or taxes imposed by the initiatives that we are undertaking. It will not cost jobs, not in farming, mining or gas, because what we're doing in this plan is positive things, enabling things. It will not increase energy bills. It is not a revolution, but a careful evolution to take advantage of changes in our markets. And it's not a set and forget plan. It has an insurance policy review mechanism to make sure that it keeps delivering for regional Australia. In this plan there is accountability, and we will be having the Productivity Commission every 5 years, the first one due by the end of 2023. That will monitor the impact, the socio-economic impact of our plans into the future. So I can say to rural and regional Australians that this is a good plan for you, it's a good plan for all Australians, and we're confident in it, that it is going to secure your future, that you can plan for your future with confidence. And we're backing that up by ensuring that we'll measure that. We won't just be measuring the fact that we'll be reducing emissions, we'll be measuring the fact that we're creating jobs, we'll be measuring the fact that we're boosting incomes, we'll be measuring the fact that we are preserving Australians' livelihoods right across the country, because that is also one of the key measures of performance and success with this plan. So I'll be taking this plan to COP26 for our target to achieve net zero by 2050. It will be supported by our updated projection that will see us exceed our 2030 target with emissions reduction of up to 35% by 2030. We will keep our commitment, though, when it comes to our pledge that we made and took to the last election of 26 to 28%. But we will meet it and we will beat it. And we will beat it with emissions reductions, we believe, of up to 35%. And we may even achieve better. But this is the approach that we put to the Australian people. We said, there's the mark, but we can meet it and we can beat it. And we will. And the world will be able to see us achieving that, and they'll be able to take record of that. Because what Australians are doing now is getting results, and they're going to keep getting results, and they're going to keep getting better results. So we will honour our commitment to the Australian people. That's what I took to them, that's what they approved, and that's what we're doing. And we will continue to work to do even better as part of our plan. Now I'm going to pass you over to the Minister for Industry, Energy and Emissions Reduction. I want to thank Angus for the tremendous work that he has done within the government over many years now as we have worked our way through this issue. It has been a very, very difficult issue, and it is one that has been carefully considered. Many of you in this room have been here for a long time, and our journey to this place today, I think, has been an important one. But what it says to Australians is we don't come at these things lightly. We come to this in a considered way, in a responsible way. We've come to this very conscious of the impacts of what is happening around the world on Australians, and to ensure that we can address that and we can put them in a stronger position. You know, only the Liberal and National parties working together, I think, can get the balance right here. And only the Liberal and National parties, I think, can be trusted with an economic plan that can achieve this and deliver this. Because we get it. We get both the risks and the opportunities. And that's what our plan is designed to address. So I'm going to ask Angus to take you through that. I thank all the members of my cabinet, of course the Deputy Prime Minister, in bringing us to this very important point and to enable Australians to move forward with confidence with what they're already doing, which is cutting emissions and growing our economy. Angus.
Well, thanks, PM. Well, this plan is a practically achievable pathway for Australia to reach net zero by 2050 the Australian way. And that means supporting our traditional jobs, but also capturing new opportunities. It means recognising that customer and investor demands are changing, and we need to adapt with them. It means preserving our traditional advantage in competitive, reliable, affordable energy. But it also means building on our track record. And if we turn to the first slide, you'll see that Australia's track record is a proud one. We see developing countries that since 2005 have increased emissions by up to 86% in India, over 70% in China, 33% in South Korea. And Australia versus even developed countries has performed extremely well with a reduction of almost 21% since 2005, 20.8%. That's higher than the OECD average in terms of reductions. The United States, Japan, New Zealand and Canada that are obviously comparable major commodity exporters like Australia. Now, we've achieved that at a time when we've increased our economy by 45% and we've increased our product exports by over 200%. And you'll see on the next slide that reduction of 20.8%, of course, is substantially larger if you exclude that extraordinary export performance, which all Australians can be very proud of. Part of that is the rapid growth of the LNG sector where Australia has been a world leader. If we look forward to 2030, we are on track to meet and beat our Paris targets. As the Prime Minister said, we're on track now with the work we've done in the Technology Investment Roadmap to achieve up to 35% reduction by 2030. And that comes on a per capita basis to a reduction in emissions of 50% or more, which is a very, very respectable performance. And as always with Australia, we achieve, we deliver. That has been our track record. When we say we're going to do something, we do it, we meet it, and we beat it. Now, if we look forward to our plan to 2050, if we go to the next slide, the vision here is to take practical action to achieve net zero by 2050. And that plan is built on our existing policies. It's a plan that will not put industries, regions or jobs at risk. It means we take advantage of those economic opportunities that are emerging now while continuing to serve our traditional markets. And it's a plan for net zero, not absolute zero. And that means offsets are an important part of that plan. The recognition, for instance, that Australia has 90 million hectares of productive agricultural land, which is a very significant carbon sink and can be a more significant carbon sink. There are 5 principles driving the plan. Technology, not taxes. Choices, not mandates. We respect customer choice. We respect the choices of Australians, and they've made the choices. We've seen a dramatic uptake of household solar, for instance, in Australia, world-leading stuff. But we also respect the choices of our export customers. Those choices will change over time, but it's not for us to say to them what they should buy. It's for us to serve them and adapt our products as they ask for those products to change. It means driving down the costs of a portfolio of technologies, getting those low emissions technologies to cost competitiveness. This is a plan about reducing the cost of low emissions technologies, not raising the cost of traditional energy sources. And in sync with that, the 4th principle is to keep our affordable, reliable energy advantage that we've had as a nation for many, many years, and our technology goals are all about supporting that. We are, as a country, accountable for progress, and there is no country that has provided quarterly emissions updates by sector, by gas, over an extended period of time, as Australia has, and that transparency will continue. If you look at where the plan delivers the reductions in emissions, we've already achieved over 20%, as I said. The technology investment roadmap, the priority technologies in that roadmap that I outlined with some additions I'll come to in a moment, back in September last year, will drive down emissions by 40%. Global technology trends, this is technologies where we're not shaping them, but we will use them, drive down emissions by another 15%. Offsets provide the opportunity to further reduce emissions by 10 to 20%. And then we're relying on additional technology breakthroughs, some of which we can see now that are likely to provide that final 15%. If you compare our approach with other approaches to this, the traditional approach is to set a target, to model the carbon tax required to meet that target, and then impose a mechanism, usually with a 3 or 4 letter acronym, to impose that cost on all Australians. That's about raising the cost of traditional energy sources and traditional technologies. Our approach is quite different. We're looking at the customer and technology trends, shaping those trends to our advantage, and on the back of that, ensuring we have a portfolio of technologies that can deliver the outcome we want to deliver, which is net zero by 2050. Now, this is not new for Australians or for people all over the world. The march of technology is an extraordinary one, and it has solved problem after problem for us over an extended period of time. If you move to the next slide, you'll see some wonderful illustrations. If you look at the cost of transistors over time, we've seen dramatic reductions over decade after decade. And as a result, once those costs get to a certain point, you see explosive growth, non-linear, explosive growth of the technology. We've seen exactly that same pattern with solar. Solar costs have consistently, since the early 70s, come down at 12% or more a year. Every year, year on year, we've seen them coming down, coming down, coming down. For that first 30 years, from the early 70s to the early 2000s, 1 gigawatt was adopted. The next 10 years, we saw 100 gigawatts. The last 10 years, through to 2022, we're expecting to see 1,000 gigawatts. So that's how low emissions technologies advance. We're seeing similar reductions in costs in other technologies. And one example of which is obviously a priority technology in the technology investment roadmap is clean hydrogen, where we've set a goal of under $2 per kilogram. And as we get to that cost competitiveness, that roadmap goal, we know we'll see explosive growth in the deployment of clean hydrogen. We, as Australia, have an opportunity to be a world leader in the adoption of blue and green hydrogen. Now, the core levers in the plan are investment in that portfolio of technologies. And if we go to the next page, you'll see in addition to that, we're providing incentives, not penalties, through the emission reduction mechanism that we set up a number of years ago, but we're also seeing rapid growth in private demand for credits, for abatement credits. And with that, we see great potential for the use of offsets, whether it's in soil carbon, land sequestration, carbon capture and storage, and high integrity offsets with our neighbours here in the Asia Pacific. Enabling that investment in infrastructure, information and standards on that information to inform customer choice and regular reviews that the PM has talked about. I'll skip over the next slide, which takes that into further detail, but that's in your plan. But central to this is the $20 billion investment the government is making in that technology portfolio. We are confident that that will deliver an additional $60 to $100 billion of state, government and private sector investment in research, deployment and demonstration and commercialisation. At the heart of the plan is getting to the goals in our technology investment roadmap. And if we move to the next page, you'll see those goals: getting the cost of hydrogen under $2 a kilogram, energy storage to under long duration energy storage to under $100 a megawatt hour, steel, aluminium, carbon capture and storage, soil carbon. We have added for this year an additional technology goal, which is ultra-low cost solar below $15 per megawatt hour. This is a technology where Australia has played a leadership role for many, many years. We can continue to into the future, and that goal will be crucial not only to Australia meeting its goals, our goals, but for other countries around the world. By applying those technologies across various sectors, we can see how emissions will come down through choice, through customers choosing those technologies. And you see on the next page that the various technologies I've just outlined across different sectors, electricity, transport, industry, agriculture and the land sector, drives down emissions between now and 2050 based on the goals and the timeframes in that previous slide. And that puts Australia in a position to lead and shape not just our own emissions reduction, but emissions reductions for others and our customers around the world, and at the same time strengthen our economy. This is the right plan for Australia. To summarise the outcomes from it that you'll see in the plan, Australians $2,000 better off on average in 2050 compared with no Australian action. A gross national income which is 1.6% higher. 62,000 new regional jobs in mining and heavy industry, and additional jobs over and above that in other sectors. No taxes or legislated targets or mechanisms. We won't be raising the price of electricity. Indeed, those technology goals put downward pressure on, and we certainly won't be putting industries, regions or jobs at risk.
When you look at this plan and the performance to this point, you make the argument that the economy's grown, exports have grown. How do you explain the Nationals' position then in that context? And doesn't the fact that the Deputy Prime Minister, he doesn't believe this, he told his party room he doesn't believe it, doesn't it undermine the very credibility of your plan?
This plan is 100% supported by our government. 100% supported by our government. It was resolved by Cabinet last night. What we've gone through as a coalition and over many weeks, but indeed over a longer period of time than that, is to bring us to this point where we recognise that what is happening around the world, we can't just let it happen to us. You know, in this debate, there are those who will say, we'll be ruined if we don't, and we'll be ruined if we do. And what's important for Australia is we set that middle course. And that's what my government's doing. And it's a coalition government. And the plan has the full support of our coalition partners. How do I know that? Because I know the difficult path they went on to get to this point. They have given their commitment in the Cabinet as part of a coalition. For 75 years, our coalition has stood together, and it's endured many things over that period of time. And I'm so pleased that our coalition has proved strong in dealing with one of the most difficult issues. And what that should reassure Australians about when it comes to us doing this as a coalition. You all knew my view and the Liberal Party's view. What this says about the coalition is we're united on getting this done because we agree together as a coalition that this is the right plan for Australia. There is an alternative plan, which is not our plan. Well, to be fair, there isn't, because they haven't said what it is yet under the Labor Party. They've got a target without a plan. They've got not even a target for 2030, let alone a plan for 2050. They have a plan to legislate people, to mandate people. That's not our plan. Last time they did something about this in government, they taxed people. So there is an alternative. It's not our alternative. And the coalition is rock solid on pursuing this plan because this protects jobs, it protects livelihoods, and it protects a way of life for rural and regional Australia.